Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Today I have a short solo episode for you. And I'm going to talk to you today about the difference between being selfless and being selfish. And I want to start first by saying that, as you know, if you read my book or you know from following me at all, that I am not a person that's out there to tell you what to do. I don't know what everyone should do. So I'm in no position to tell anyone what to do, but I am in a position to offer you things to think about. And this is another one of the things that I want to talk about with you today to help you or encourage you or inspire you to think about something a little bit differently. So the first question I have for you is, what kind of a leader are you? How do you define yourself? How do you describe yourself? And even if you're not a leader, I guess I would say, what kind of a person are you? How do you define yourself? How do you describe yourself? And I think I asked that question because for me, for a long time, throughout my entrepreneurial career and my personal, life as well, I was always trying to be a selfless person, meaning that I felt like it was my duty and my obligation, and I thought it was right to put everyone else's needs and wants and desires before mine. So I call that being selfless. And there's a lot of good things about being selfless, right? Like coaches are selfless and teachers are selfless, and we describe or we associate a lot of good things and good people with the word selfless. And I never want to, give up that, right? Because there's no way I can say, well, being selfless is not a good thing. It is a good thing. But for me, particularly in my entrepreneurial capacity and, growing companies, I think I got that a little bit wrong, because while I was being what I thought was selfless or servant or some of the other words that you hear used about it, I was actually over the years becoming lazy, and I was confusing being, impactful or being busy with being impactful or productive. And ultimately, I was just becoming frustrated too. So I had all these things that I was trying to, be selfless about and make myself feel like I was doing the things that a good leader should do. And the results of those things was that I was becoming lazy. I was becoming, busy instead of productive or impactful. And I was becoming frustrated. And I had to fall into a really, deep pit that I happen to call the valley of uncertainty. I had to fall into that deep pit and wallow around there in my frustration for a while. There were a lot of things that led to that, but the reality was I was in this place in this valley of uncertainty, and I just didn't know what to do. And I was thinking to myself, how could all these things that I've been doing, putting everybody first and doing all these things, or at least in my mind, that's what I was doing, and end up here in a place that I didn't like, in a place that I didn't think I deserved, and in a place that I was feeling the way I was feeling. And after wallowing around in there for a while, and then finally, reaching out and sort of getting some help, which I'd never done either, it became clear to me that I was thinking about this all wrong, because instead of being selfless, I really needed to be selfish. And selfish has a terrible connotation. People don't like the word, at least the way that the word is generally ascribed to other people, because it's not a pleasant thing to be thought of or called. It's not like self-confidence or self-motivating. It's a bad self, not a good self. But regardless of that, and you could choose another word for it if you'd like, but I chose the word selfish because I really needed to understand where I was going and where I wanted to be, what I wanted my future to look like. And being selfless wasn't getting me there. In fact, it was really getting me further and further away from there, because when I was being selfless, I mentioned, lazy, and I was being lazy because I was doing all these things, to put other people first and put them before me, but I was also putting their work before my work. And I was I was basically ignoring the work I was supposed to be doing as leader and as the entrepreneur, because I could do all of these other things and I didn't have to do that hard work. So when I decided to get selfish, it really gave me the clarity to understand that in order for me to ever be selfless, I had to be selfish first, so that I could be very, very sure about what I wanted. And then I could convey that to everyone on my team. In this particular case, and if you don't have a team, it could be to your friends or your colleagues or someone around you, because you need them to support you to get to your goals. So when I got selfish, I became way more focused. I became, and I don't want to use the word visionary, but I became it helped me to start to see things that I hadn't been seeing before, and that people on my team and around me hadn't been seeing at all either. And then on top of all that, it made me happy. And when I was clear about all of those things, and I was focused and I had vision and I was happy, I also had confidence. And when I had all of that whole package, I could go back to my team, one, and I could lead, which I hadn't been doing. And two, I could help them because I needed them to contribute in a much bigger way in order for this to work for me. I could go back to them and be very clear about empowering them, providing the direction, giving the autonomy, and benefiting from the talent that I had in my organization, that while I was being selfless, or while I thought I was being selfless, I was I wouldn't say I was completely ignoring it, but I certainly was discounting it. And that was a really big mistake. So my lesson for today is just think about it. Think about how you describe yourself and who you are. And if you are selfless, that's great. As long as the selflessness isn't getting in the way of what you want, and as long as it's making you happy. But if it's not, try thinking about becoming a little bit selfish, because as I said, when I did that, it really, really made a difference in how I thought and how I led and how happy I was. And who doesn't want to be as happy as you can, because the world is definitely against you when it comes to keeping you happy. So you got to keep yourself happy. If you want to learn more about this, or you want to, first you can go to my book, Ownership, How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck. There's some great stories in there about how I managed to do that. And of course, you can keep coming back here and following me on the How Did It Happen podcast, because I'll be doing more and more episodes about these kinds of things, and hoping to share what I've learned with all of you. Until next time, thank you, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for listening to this episode of the How Did It Happen podcast, where we believe that success doesn't happen unless you make it happen. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. And while you're there, please rate it and leave a comment as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show, ideas for future guests, or whatever you'd like to share. And of course, you can always find me at MikeMalatesta.com. See you next time. Thanks again for listening to the How Did It Happen podcast.